Welcome to the iHemp Hour. My name is Dave Craybill. I'm with iHemp Michigan. iHemp Michigan's mission is to educate, inform, and promote the research, development, and cultivation of industrial hemp. Looking forward to our guest today, gentlemen. How you doing? It's been a little while. Mike Brennan, how's it going? What's going on there in Ann Arbor?
Well, we're ready for that 10 degrees that's coming in tomorrow. So other than that, yeah, we got dumped on pretty good about a week ago, about 18 inches of snow. Pretty unusual for us, but normally we let you guys on the lake over there, Lake Michigan, catch all that snow, but not this time.
Yeah.
Well, and Mike, I'm coming over to your house because it's going to be -2 here tomorrow. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll be a heck of a lot warmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for the cold weather. We were able to play outside. I have some photos maybe I can share later. Last night, maybe 8 skates a season. There's the max. We'll get outside. This is our first one this season. It's been so warm, so I'm excited for the cold weather.
Okay.
Yeah, you only got a few weeks left because the pitchers and catchers reports next week. I think for baseball. So
yeah, but Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow this morning, so that's at least another 6 weeks. So he never lied.
What if we can just shoot him sometime?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, we missed you last when we did. I'm sorry, you did such a great intro, and I didn't do such a great intro last time. So.
Oh, I'm sure you're fine. Yeah. So, any other news or quick updates before we get into our guest?
Just want to thank our sponsors for this show. Icon Processors is going to be one of our sponsors, and then Down on the Farm as well. Icon Processors has some great holiday. Now that Valentine's Day is coming, great things for you and the missus or you and whatever your partner to be able to enjoy some of the CBD stuff. There's some soothing creams that we'll be talking about a little later in the show. So we just want to thank Icon Processors for their sponsor this week for the show.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this week's show, we have Ray Kaderli. Ray is the founder of 2 companies active in building homes utilizing hemp as a primary building material. He is also the president for the US Hemp Building Association, a trade association that advocates and supports the use of industrial hemp in building and construction. His first company is Hemp Building Network, LLC. The focus of the company is to make the building with hemp possible. Many people have learned the benefits of hemp but don't know that building with hemp is possible. It can be difficult. You need 5 key components of your project or it will fail. Hemp Building Network is a network of professional and building with hemp possibilities. Ray, we thank you for joining us today. I know you're on a travel schedule today, but you've been able to carve out a little time for us today, and Ray, we appreciate that very much.
Oh, likewise. Thanks for having me. The biggest thing that the industry needs over the next 1 to 3 years is just telling the story. And so, podcast and broadcast and influencers alike, they're doing the heavy lifting on just getting public awareness so people know about what it is and just that it's actually possible and can, get past the funny jokes of, what happens if the house catches on fire. That'll be a fun party. That always gets you the first conversation and then, enjoy the chuckle for the 100th time and then get on with a good conversation. So thanks so much for having me.
Well, we appreciate that very much. We'll talk a little later. iHemp Michigan this year is going to be focusing a lot on our educational portion on building with hemp material, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later.
Awesome.
Ray, it's always interesting to hear how people, got involved with the industrial hemp and the building, and so we'd love to hear your story about how you got involved with it.
Yeah, so what's your hemp story? As far as going down the rabbit hole, and it's quite humorous. As my background is a real estate broker and investor, and so I was just out to build houses to hold as rental properties. And then I was going through, my material selections. In previous careers, I've done things, like running a regional recycling facility for organics, and then we made compost and mulch. And so I was very in tune and passionate about environmental stewardship and things like that. And then I really like putting a good product out as a landlord that one would last and be profitable to me, and then provide a good living environment for the tenants that are going to be occupying that. And then combine that with just a self-awareness that I was watching too much Netflix, and then my brain was turning to Jello, like Grandma would say. And so, I found myself, I'll just, find a few topics that interest me on, go down rabbit holes in YouTube. And, that was a little bit more productive than, just watching another season where the cliffhanger of one starts the next episode of the other. And I knew the Farm Bill happened. This was in 2017 when I really started looking at this, and I saw the Farm Bill pass, and I knew that was a big deal. As an entrepreneur, I always like to watch trends, and hemp being legal to cultivate was like we all just discovered trees. And I knew it. And I started researching this as hard as I could. And then, go down the rabbit hole far enough, you get delusions of grandeur that you can do things. And then we've got the hemp that just finished being installed in our first house that we permitted and built in San Antonio. And so the hemp is curing. We'll be going in with plaster and finishing touches over the next few months and have that up online. And then the more I learn from other people. There's a community out there that does this. And so we all just started networking together and meet regularly. And then the US Hemp Building Association is a new trade association to support the construction and building sciences and use of materials and methods using industrial hemp. And so I'm the incoming president for that organization as well. And I really look forward to helping the collaboration go further. They've got a lot of traction and good things are happening. So that's my rabbit hole story on how I ended up in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, and congratulations to the USHBA for getting the ICC, the certifications, for hemp as a building material. That's game changing.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of people that put some blood, sweat, and tears in that, and then that passed just in the fall of last year. I think it was September, October. I think it was September, but that's new news. And so now the next year I see as kind of like a slow-moving unboxing video. Those videos to where whatever it is that comes in a box, there's a video of somebody unboxing it. And then, just taking those codes out, unpacking them, seeing what they are. If you had never seen anything that was related to hemp and construction and you just read through that, it might be a little tough to discern exactly what's what. And so we really want to give the support to the design and architecture community that supports the building community, and then have that kind of technical support and work with them that way.
So currently, that what passed there is, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase here, but basically they can use hempcrete in non-supporting walls, right?
Correct. Yeah, hemp is insulation, and it's the hempcrete is insulation 1, and then 2, it's the substrate for any plaster. Now you can have it where you use other claddings over it, but the most conventional is the hempcrete, and then you plaster over it with a vapor open lime plaster, or just something that's vapor open, not a cement stucco. That's important to know. And so the code has a lot of definitions for that and those different scenarios. And so now, before the code, because like my project in San Antonio, I had permitted before the code passed, and how that happened is there's an engineer that stamped my plans. And so the engineers, in order to be able to stamp those plans, they're going to look at your structure and that you're not doing anything that your structure wouldn't allow. And so it's not going to fall over. But for you to certify and actually stamp something from a building material point, it's got to have an R value, which you can extrapolate from some of the European tests. And so you get that R value, which is roughly R2 per inch. And it performs so much more than that. So you're really walking safe. So it's got to have an R value and a fire rating. And then the fire tests that were done, I believe almost 2 years ago or more now, give that as well. And so there's going to be more fire tests with different binders, different wall scenarios, and all of that. But those are the two things that an engineer really needs to put their stamp on it. So there's a very low bar of risk to them. It's not like a bridge is going to fail and people are going to die. Worst case scenario, people might be a little hotter in the summer and colder in the winter, but we all know that hempcrete as an insulation just way outperforms everything else. And so that's a nice walking point. But to go back to the code, you don't need the code with an engineer's stamp. Now that you have the code, it's still good to have an engineer's stamp on it when you're putting your plans in for process, because it takes a little bit takes all the pressure off of the municipal governing authority, because if anything goes wrong, it's the engineer's fault, and then that's where the lightning will go if lightning strikes. And that's one of the things that's important to municipal.
I watched a great webinar yesterday. Company out in Idaho, they have I'm going to call it batting material for the insulation.
Yeah.
I just installed some hemp wood in a project we have going down here for flooring.
Yeah.
I wanted to insulate the garage, and so when I do that project, I'm going to try to get some of that insulation with that in.
Yeah, Tommy and Maddie with Hempatecture, they've got a new manufacturing facility opening up, and then Greg with Hempwood, they've got some really great products. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen that are making other new products coming along. Now, hempcrete, if somebody says, built a house out of or built a house with, that is, I think I put 20,000 pounds or more of hemp into the house, and it's a small house, like 1,400 square feet in San Antonio. So as far as like the carbon sequestering go, those are some really sexy numbers that we're looking to run around town. And so, there's a lot of different products that are out there. I know there's a company on the West Coast that's making something with magnesium oxide and hemp in it that's a board and a sheet good. And so there's a lot of different products that are making the way. Like I said, it's like we just discovered wood and all the different things we can do.
When doing the hempcrete insulation for the in-wall fill, do you find how critical do you find the spec on the hemp hurd? Because I've seen a lot of the videos, and one of the things you don't want is those balls of fiber, that are going to create some kind of weird pocket in the wall. But if it's a 3/4 inch or a 1/4 inch hunk of hemp hurd, what's the difference? How important are those specs?
The real important thing is to have the same skill that somebody who bakes bread has, and the same skill that somebody who mixes concrete by hand has. It's like, it'll tell you when it's ready. It'll tell you when it's too wet or too dry, and so you can spot these things as you're mixing it up. And then once you have a batch that doesn't go right, you'll figure that out real quick. And so there's ways to test things as you go forward. A lot like the concrete truck has the slump test, and then I like to ball stuff up. That's an intro to an answer. Is that the big things that are important are particle size, having it as free as possible of dust, because the dust and the fiber, having it as free of fiber as possible, those can mess up your moisture ratio mixtures, and then they can make it to where you could be going along, clicking along just fine, and then all of a sudden your product's not sticking to the wall or not sticking in place because the moisture got off. And so that's the main reason on that, and then having it dust free and fiber free as much as possible. And then the other thing is the color. You like it to have that nice blonde color to it, so it hasn't been aged or redded forever or sat around for a long time, and now it's incorporating some potential mold into the mix. Those interact badly, and then now you're incorporating something that you don't want in a wall system. So that color, particle size, and then dust and fiber are the main tests that are out there. Now, There are some standards. There's a lab in Arkansas that both of the suppliers that I would order from at the moment are using, and then there's several other suppliers that I'm talking to about what they've got as far as volume for the coming year. And then I'm going to have whoever any builder buys from, they need to have some sort of testing to where there's a third party involved, to where it's not just somebody going, oh, hey, this is good. No, it's not. Yes, it is. And you're going back and forth, because what will happen is, as things go, you're going to have you're going to have something that happens bad, and there's going to be the callback, or there's going to be a scenario, somebody didn't do something right. It's going to happen, right? And so at the end of the day, what we need with a standard is to where, and nobody likes this, but it's like we all need to be able to sue each other, and it's okay. Because if something bad happens, the builder's going to get called, and then if the builder is at fault because they didn't buy the right material, well, that electricity of that is going to flow back upstream, that somebody didn't sell them the right material. And so if everybody did the best that they can do to have a clean finished product, then you just file an insurance claim, things happen, and then it's fixed. And then nobody has any bad repercussions on their business long term. It's just something that happened, and those are the things that we have for business situations like that. And that's what a standard will do. Now, there's the one lab that's out in Arkansas, I think it's called FAST Laboratories. And then there's a couple of groups that are going out and setting a standard, because they're going to be bringing that to the marketplace. If you buy the French herd, which many folks have done, it comes in the 44-pound bales, and it's got that little orange sticker on it. That's just that cooperative that produces that, putting that out there into the marketplace, that they've met all of these internal standards, and then that's their brand. And so they are a good standard to go from, and we're in the process of doing that. That's one of the big objectives of the US Hemp Building Association this year, is to put out guidelines of what is desired in these different applications, so that the private sector can then create those standards. Because with the standards comes enforcement, comes liability. There's a whole lot of other things, and so we want those business operators to be able to have that advantage and create that marketplace. We just want to provide the supporting structure and guidelines that will help. The best example is, if you're going to spray that through a machine, like that ER-Easy pneumatically conveyed, it's mixed wet and then pneumatically conveyed through large vacuum tubes. That's real picky on the length. And so if you've got real long pieces in there, it's going to jam up your hoses. If you're hand casting that in place, or if that's in a block scenario in a manufactured facility, not so much. And so the tolerances can be a little bit bigger.
Let me ask you, you deal with all 50 states, and one of the issues that we have here in Michigan is the state in general doesn't support anything for hemp, and they charge very high licensing fees, which has discouraged a lot of farmers from even getting into hemp. Is there any particular states that you work with that you can sort of, as a best practice, they're doing something really good to support the industry that you could point to?
Yeah, I think I know that Missouri and Kansas, the Midwest is really good about, hey, this is profitable to grow. Let's grow it. Now, there's kind of several things that added up to a 1-2 punch that really took the wind out of the sails. Once the Farm Bill passed everything, there was the green rush of CBD and all the cannabinoid production. And then a lot of farmers got hurt because it was way overproduced. There was market issues, et cetera, et cetera. And so, farmers get together, farmers share ideas. That was one of the things that was like, that hurt. Then you add in, corn and beans over the past couple of years have been killing it. And so to have a farmer come off of something that's really profitable, because you don't always have those profitable years, and then those aren't the years to really take risks trying new crops. And so you can't really fault them for that. And so it's really slowed the momentum moving forward about getting acreage in volume. Now, I do see Texas is doing a lot on the fiber grain side. I know that Missouri and Kansas are doing a lot as well. And so I know some of the farms there personally, and they're doing some really good things. On the state level, I have seen that like all of the states have the state university agricultural extension system, and then I have seen the farmers that have gone out and pioneered this are bringing the university along for the ride instead of the university going out and bringing the farmer along for the ride. The farmers have been the innovators that are bringing things forward, and they're the ones to where if one does it, then the rest of them do it, and then they're purposefully very cautious, and then that's a good thing, and so things are moving forward rather quickly, especially considering the industry that usually doesn't have that quick of adoption of things.
So, Blaine, is iHemp reached out to Michigan State? Are you working with Michigan State on that?
Well, we're working with Michigan State in a couple different areas. One is they are looking for growers in the Midwest area this year, about 5 or so per state, to grow grain and fiber. And there's a little stipend that they're offering to do that. I think about $500. There's a little application you need to fill out. They're looking for farmers that have grown and have experienced a little bit with this. They're going to provide the seed. They're going to ask for, you're going to do test plots is what you're going to do. And they're looking for 5 to 20 acre kind of size is what they're looking at. So we're working with them in that aspect. And then what's also happening in the state is that Kaderli from Hemp for Humanity is looking at forming a co-op in the state. And also he's taken a few growers this year to grow some of the fiber. So if anybody's looking at growing some fiber this year, you want to get a call to H4H, Hemp for Humanity, and Cody, and we'll get the information up on the website a little later. So there's that going on. So there's certainly an interest for sure. And I think that the fiber side is going to probably have a little bit more interest in it before the grain side comes out, only because right now, we're not able to use the grain for livestock. Once the grain for livestock becomes available, it's going to change the whole dynamics for a lot of people to be able to grow that. The nice thing is that, where we need to get, and there's a lot of talk about going on, is we need to get the processing in the state. That's really what we got to have for that. So I think there's going to be a few acres, growing in fiber this year. There's going to be some contracts that are going to be offered. I know that's also happening. So, yeah, I think there's going to be good interest there. I know that Bill Beard, who has made the beast, which we can decorticate CBD plants with, is working very hard to be able to adapt that and be able to process that material. Actually designing and trying to work on something this year where we can actually do the processing right in the field instead of taking it somewhere else. The machine will pick it up and process it right there. So a lot of good things happening there for sure.
Go ahead. I'm just going to say to Ray too, the other thing that slowly is starting to happen in Michigan is the auto industry is now moving towards hemp instead of plastic composites. I mean, right now it's sort of the top of the line vehicles that it's going into, but I know Ford was sniffing around. Lear is Ford's big supplier. Lear is a tier 1. And Lear was looking for 6,000 acres of hemp that they wanted in order to give that to Ford, because Ford's still experimenting with it. They'd like to, I think Ford wants to bring it into the mainstream cars, not just the most expensive cars, and use it for interiors, exteriors, different places. So it's very early in the process, but do you think that's also going to be big for hemp moving forward? Something along those lines?
Oh, sure. And then, in fact, having a co-op scenario from the folks that I talk to, friends and colleagues in the commodity market space, a co-op really works well when there's an offtake that is just, they'll take what you have. If it's, you've got the big three auto manufacturers, and they're just they're taking acres upon acres, and then you just supply that, or there's one thing that pulls everything forward. That's a great thing. And so, but there's been a lot of chicken and egg scenario about the processing, but now there's several processors that are maturing, and then several more coming online. So it is a bit of a race to get to that. And then right now, there's a lot that are being successful. Now, I will say that the processors are also farmers in most cases, and they have the genetic backing as well. So for all of the inputs, and this is one of the things that I closely watch, is that that processor or that co-op is going to need to have genetics, is going to need to have processing capabilities, is going to need to be able to either point in the right direction or have some sort of provision for insurance, crop insurance and futures is one of the things that make it really important when you're doing your business planning as a farm producer. And if you can't get insurance, then that's dicey. If you can't get a futures contract, maybe you don't grow that. And so those things are going to mature as well. And then I believe the Chambrière, which is the French cooperative, they sell most of their fiber to, I believe it's Renault Automotive. It's one of the automobile companies. And then what that does is that, that takes the bast part, the fiber part, off the outside of the plant, but it leaves a mountain of hurd that's used for hempcrete and construction behind it. And then so the hurd is almost a byproduct that gets sold, and so it gets sold at a really nice, appealing price. Now, coming into the U.S. markets, hurd has been pulling the wagon, and a lot of it's getting sold for that. And then now it's kind of like, well, what do we do with all of our fiber? And so, which is a good problem to have, because finding uses for fiber like automotive dash parts and door panels, that'll do nothing but bring the price of hurd down, because now you've got, another thing coming off of the plant that's viable for the farmer.
So would you recommend that Michigan take a serious look at doing some kind of co-op then? Would that help? Because right now, like you say, it's the chicken and the egg, right? So
Yeah, I think the advice that I was given, and it's not my advice, I'll just relay it along, is a co-op really works well when there's an end consumer that will take all of that offtake. And so if I would negotiate hard on, with the automotive manufacturing, with plastics, with, textile is, that's a couple of years away, but it's rapidly making progress. There's a lot of things for non-wovens. And then any of these scenarios have the problem to where if you have, the good fortune to make the big deal, they're like, okay, I need this much and this much, and then, well, that'll take 1 million acres under cultivation to grow it all. And then if they're going to ramp up and change their manufacturing, they don't want to boutique manufacture something. They want to manufacture something, and then that takes having lots of acres. And so the baby steps that we're taking where we don't fall are extremely strategic, because once the baby learns to run, there's going to be a lot of fun to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's going to be the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, but so going back to the co-op, the main thing is just to have a market for at least one of the offtakes. If you're producing fiber, grain, hurd, and y'all mentioned it earlier, the ag feed. People are, that a stroke of a pen, and you got yourselves an industry overnight. And so, I live in Virginia in proximity to DC, and so I'm going to look to take part in some of the influence on that farm bill if possible. It really interests me. I was at the ASTM committee week last week. They set a lot of standards and for different parts of the industry, construction and otherwise. And one of the big topics in the cannabis committee covers all things, cannabinoids and fiber and grain. et cetera, et cetera. And then there was a lot of conversation on, when agricultural or livestock feed becomes a thing, then what? And it's just a matter of when. And so everybody's jockeying for position right now. But man, that's a big one.
Yes, it is going to be for sure. I think probably poultry would be the first one, obviously, because there's been more research done with poultry at this point. So the rest of it is coming along as well, too. So.
We need that Safe Banking Act to pass, or some type of clear regulation so the banks aren't so nervous.
Actually, one of the subcommittees of ASTM is banking and finance, and that's exactly what they're talking about. And again, they cover all cannabinoid production as well as fiber grain. And then I brought up the point in that committee that I'm buying the woody part of the plant, and I'm making a house with it, and then I cannot get a bank account. And I've had a bank account there since I've had a driver's license, and it's just one of those things. And I went to a couple of different banks, and then, I was told, well, don't put the word hemp in your business name. It's like, well, you still have to answer the questions. It's like, is this a casino? Is this this? Is this this? Because this is a lot of things that, banks and insurance company, they buy risk. That's what they do. And if there's a perceived higher risk, I cannot fault them for doing that. And so what the industry, I know there's a lot of clarity that's being sought on separating grain and fiber from cannabinoid production, because cannabinoid production has a lot of regulation. There is more risk in that, and it's wrought with, legislative woes and enforcement woes, where the other, we're just looking to make car parts and houses.
Yeah, we get lumped in with Michael's side of the 0.3.
I'm the above 0.03, so
dark side has cookies, though, I was told.
Yeah. So interesting. It's just it gets back to the educational thing. I mean, even on our side of the percentage, people just don't really understand it. I mean, we've been legal in Michigan now, adult legal, since 2019. And that's when we started my company that covers the news for the cannabis businesses. And I'm always amazed that there's so many people that now are starting to do cannabis or have confusion with hemp. I mean, of course, you have to have a pretty great eye to be able to tell the difference between cannabis and hemp, obviously. But just everything, it's that reefer madness thing haunts both sides of the 0.03, so and it gets back to, you got to educate people. I mean, a lot of them, don't get me started on politicians. They're like used car salesmen. They'll sell their mother to get elected, right? So I don't have much stock in those people, but unfortunately, they're the folks that write the laws, but they don't even understand it, so.
Yeah. And then if you have an informed citizenry, which is, the foundation of any society. And so if there's programs like this to where people can go, oh, okay, there is a separation between cannabinoid, grain, and fiber.
Right.
Same genetic strain, but it's the difference between a hamburger tomato and a cherry tomato. They're both a tomato. Okay, we get it. And then take that metaphor on further, and then to where the market, aka the voters, are all saying, hey, we want you to pull your head out of your backside and get stuff done. And then whatever it is, if the citizenry is demanding it, then that's what happens the most time. And so I really enjoy speaking and teaching on the topic to where people can know that there is a difference. The building with it is it's healthy for the occupants. It's healthy for environmental stewardship of the natural resources. And then those two things combined just make it superior to other things that are out there, and that it's possible. And then once everybody starts wanting it, then we're Americans. If the market wants it, we do what we do. We give it to them. And then politicians will be the same. And so it's just a matter of people knowing about it and wanting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last poll I saw was 2/3 of Americans, or maybe even higher number than that, now think it's time for the feds to get off cannabis's back. That particularly the baby boomers that I grew up with. They're the ones that vote the seniors now, and they're pretty heavy cannabis consumers. I mean, or CBD consumers. Aches
Oh
and
yeah,
pains and whatnot.
getting
And
old
so,
hurts.
yeah, they hurt. Yes, I know. I'm gotten a tad older myself, and I've discovered new aches and pains I wasn't aware of. What I wanted to say earlier, though, there's 13 banks or credit unions in the state of Michigan that do cannabis loans,
Yeah.
but I was just on the Cannabis Regulatory Agency educational webinar last week, and we had one of those banks on there. What people have to realize is, yes, they supply those loans, but the fees are just absolutely crazy
Yeah.
Yeah,
because they have to do so much compliance, So,
$100 or $250 a month.
oh, at
You
least
make it
that, at
pretty
least
close.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So,
think there's huge opportunity in the private money sector to do private money lending and syndications and funds to where, and that's my background, as a real estate broker and investor. The natural progression of me and my career was, instead of having to have, one investor per deal on a house flip or something like that, to where you could have a pool of funds and have that type of investment structure. I think there's a lot of opportunity with that, especially with the remnants of the Jobs Act opportunity zones. And so those two things were like a double whammy, 1-2 punch of significance that are really not maturing until now. That opportunity zone scenario, it for the first year they didn't even have any support for it from the IRS. I was on hold for, an hour, and then they came back and said, "Oh, we just really don't know." And then, you're not going to structure an investment scenario with several $1 million in it on something that you can't even get a call from. And so now there's a lot of case law and professional support for it. And then, on the banking side, that's going to bring a lot of money into the marketplace.
yeah. Well, part of it is the DEA has controlled this space for so long, they don't want to give that up. And so it's like you got to get them to throttle it back a little bit. And then, once you get power or control, you don't want to give it up, right? So that's a big part of the problem.
But Mike, what concerns me about that statement, what confuses me, is their actions with Delta 8, where they said, "Oh, Delta 8's legal, hands off." I mean, that doesn't line up with that statement. I mean, why would they have hands off on that totally when, that's nastier than Delta 9 in my mind? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it gets back to they are just spitballing at this point. They don't really know. I don't know if they got scientists at the DEA or whether they look at the science, but it's inconsistent.
I
It's
think
the
they're just
federal
following
government,
the law, so we need somebody to change the law.
right?
The
Yeah.
laws
Well,
have
look
to change.
what happened this last week with FDA, right? They punted this whole thing. It's
Yeah,
their job to
we're
do
not
this
going to
thing,
decide.
and they punted it back to Congress. Oh, we can't do it. So we're gonna have to have legislation. Do your job, guys. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's the problem with bureaucrats, so
Well,
they don't stick their neck out, right?
well, I do know that, on the just from the ASTM side, there was a lot of things that were needing clarity, and then how to set a standard for something to truly be bought and sold and produced in the marketplace. And a lot of the mantra was, "This is what we want. This is what we need." That'll hopefully get straightened out with the Farm Bill. So the Farm Bill, let this horse out of the barn in 2018, and then first in 14, and then the door to the barn just got blown off in 2018, and now they can tweak and adjust and take this thing to being a productive horse instead of a wild stallion running through the field, and so that it can be more. If you're going to be on the manufacturer and farming side and producing side, and you're making 7-figure business decisions based on being able to do business, and then you don't want the carpet yanked out from under you. And that's what a lot of people had, especially on the cannabinoid side. My as an entrepreneur and business cultivator, my heart breaks when people are so passionate about something like what it does for the lives of people, that are their customers, and then having to go through those woes in business. And so, but on the construction side, we're kind of the sober cousin that gets brought to the party, and we like that. There's a little bit of crossover. I know on the biomass side, you can potentially make some building materials with that, once the flour or the grain get taken off. And so, we like wearing that hat. We're the boring one at the party.
You talked a little about education, so I'll bring that up a little bit. So we're working with US Hemp Building Association this year as well. That's one of their big emphasis is going to be education this year. So again, iHemp Michigan is going to be doing a number of different events this year, helping to bring the information about building with hemp, industrial hemp material. The first thing we're going to have happen is February the 11th, that's a Saturday. There is Friday and Saturday, there's a show in Holland at the Civic Center, the Lakeshore Building Association show. And Saturday night after the show, we're going to be having a little meet and greet at the Holland Big Lake Brewery Company. Probably about 6 o'clock or so, we'll probably start that, just for people from the show to come over and get a little education and sample some of the material and see what we're talking about. So that's our first thing. And then we're planning a meeting for March the 11th. Again, it's a Saturday. We're hoping to work with the university, Lawrence Technology University. We're kind of working with them. We're not sure if that's going to be able to happen on that date. But if not, we're going to have it somewhere else. And it's going to be a day activity. We're going to start registration between 8 and 9. We're going to go through the history of the building material, what's available, how to use it. And then that's going to lead into some projects this summer. We're talking with Kim Crows from Fiberport here in Michigan. She's got a lot of building things she has going on. And I think she's going to be talking with you, Ray, at South by Southwest in Austin.
Yeah.
So we're going to work with Kim quite a bit. And I know that Doug Allen, he's a contractor, and he's working with a lot of the hemp wood material, just some of his different projects. And then again, Cody Lay from Hemp for Humanity, he's working on some tiny home projects, and he's working on some hemp-free projects. So these sessions that we're going to do are going to lead into summer, being able to have what I like to call field days, actually come out to the sites where they're doing stuff, feel it and touch it and see how it's all done. So stay tuned. We'll have a lot more information on that coming up for sure. Those for sure on that. So yeah, this education thing is really happening. It's important.
And you mentioned the local builders association. The National Association of Home Builders is really one of our big targets for collaboration, as well as the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, because they're going to interface with the clients that are the ones that are wanting to build the houses. They interface with the building industry, especially like production builders, because everything has to be on a pathway to production, or else we don't get the large impact environmental stewardship and health of a society from living in these houses. You don't get that unless it's in a production scenario. And so a lot of those things are our targets as an organization. And so what I would encourage everybody is to, ring, ring, knock, knock, make contact with their local home builders association. Have they heard about it? Would they like to hear more about it? Would they like a presentation? They all have meetings, they all have gatherings, and then we just show up there and get them an entryway to go down the rabbit hole. And then once they go down the rabbit hole, we need to support them along the way with the technical support, to where when architects have questions, they like to talk to architects. And that's why, I'm real excited to have, architects in our leadership structure now that we can call on, and then they can also lead the way on putting together technical supporting papers that when that architect is doing something, that they can, reference that and not just be out there alone taking a risk. So, yeah.
Yeah, Bob Escher was one of the original founders of the USHB up in Vermont. They've been doing some things with the design. Yeah, good resources. We just need to get them out there, right?
Yep.
We want to thank, again, just a little minute here, and we want to thank Icon Processors for for helping sponsor the show, and down on the farm, Icon Processors has some great little creams and lotions and tinctures available. And they also are carrying the hemp herd for the bedding material as well. So we'll have some information on that up there, so you can maybe find that information as well. So, Fabio is going to try to join us today and talk a little bit about his products, but he has a prior commitment he had to take care of, so he wasn't able to join us today. We'll have him on the next show. We can talk a little bit about that. Remember, Valentine's Day's coming up, so some of those lotions and potions, are kind of nice.
Well, and then we have another really cool sponsor down on the farm where you can also buy hemp parts, hemp seed oil, animal bedding. There's a number of hemp products with more to come.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll give a little tease at the end of the show. You're gonna want to stick around for that little recipe because yummy that recipe. I'll tell you that much.
And every workshop we do, we let people make a heart-shaped hempcrete sample, which is usually a big hit going home, especially around anniversaries and Valentine's.
Oh, all right, that's good. I like that.
Good angle there,
huh? Mike, have you got any news you want to share from your side of the world?
Well, I do. You mentioned it when we first started that I'm kind of shilling for a friend, but the Cincy Magazine's having their big Mardi Gras party at the Causeway Bay Hotel in Lansing on Fat Tuesday, which this year is, February 21st. So 3 weeks from last Tuesday. And it'll be, 40, 50, 60 vendors there. It's a big facility. The last time they had their event there, we had 1,000 people in there. It is a consumption event as well. Now, they won't be selling anything there, but I think there'll be a lot of samples going around. And then there's a consumption area just outside. And then it's free. Free is good. And they're going to have Cajun food to celebrate Mardi Gras. And if you want to be a VIP ticket holder for $75, you get a bag filled with many of those samples I just made reference to. So I think it's a great value for $75. If you want to meet a lot of those, it's still a small community, but a lot of the major players will be there at that event. So if you're looking to connect, network with folks in the industry, whether they're processors or cultivators or dispensaries or any of the other categories, a lot of them will be there. It would be a really good thing, and we'll be there. We just launched a new cannabis tourism publication called Sparks and Recreation, sparksandrec.com. Have to make sure I get all those references. And so that we'll be there sort of discussing that. We've just had our second edition come out. We have a digital magazine where you can flip the pages online, watch the videos, all that stuff. Whoops, excuse me. And so that's we'll be there to represent that because that's more of a consumer event. Normally we do just pretty much business to business coverage. But I also wanted to mention a couple other things. The Free Press put out an article the other day we picked up that it's still, if you want to work for the state of Michigan, you're going to be facing a drug test. And so a lot of people that do want to work for the state, they're just not going to make it. They're not going to pass that test. I mean, certainly they'll pick up the THCs, but I'm not sure about the CBDs if they pick that up on a drug test. That's not my area of expertise. Can they pick that up?
I've heard various reports on that. You can get the THC free.
Yeah,
so that would help. But
that was for sure. But I just don't know about the CBDs.
Yeah, so. there's some people. There's a little residue.
Yeah.
Show up on that.
Well, there's some talk about maybe changing that, particularly now that we're an adult legal state. And not everybody, but many people are consuming. I don't know what I see
everybody's
different
doing
numbers.
a contact buzz. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that people that, like Brian Hanna, who's the director, who he's never confessed whether he ever tried it or not. He probably didn't inhale if he did, right? But I mean, people like him who should need to actually try it to understand the market are not allowed to do that by the state. It's like, really? How could you run an industry you don't really understand, right? Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. And speaking of training and getting back to CBDs, the Midwest Canada nurses are offering live classes February 4th and again in March for people, nurses that want to prescribe CBDs and cannabis in lieu of opioids and all the stuff the pharma tries to push on us. And that's coming up. You can get the details on that's free. And the details are at 420post.com. That's our new name. We dropped the Michigan Marijuana Report name because we got so many other things called 420 Post, so we decided to consolidate it all under one brand. And so you can find the details out there. I'd recommend you check it out if you're a medical professional and you really want to find out the benefits, particularly of using CBD products. As I referenced earlier, as we all get older, we have these aches and pains, and in some cases, THC products. I mean, we work with veterans, and veterans have PTSD issues, and a lot of them use cannabis to kind of balance them out a little bit. So, great program coming up. Check it out if you want to use cannabis in any form of the plant for in medicine. That would be a good session for you to attend. There's 2 of them, February and March, both live, both free.
Excellent.
So we try to touch on a lot of different topics, so.
So I'll just bring up a little news that came out this last week. US Hemp Roundtable, who we're members and supporters of, has mentioned that we're going to need to once again do our support and notifying our representatives in Washington. A lot of the bills I had last year got introduced but didn't go anywhere. So those now new Congress, they're all going to be reintroduced again. So we'll be starting the campaign up again to be able to contact them, say, please support these issues, and these items that we have that are important. Again, this whole thing with FDA was quite interesting, and we'll have to see where that goes and what legislation. Maybe Congress will be friendly to this, but what I've seen the last few weeks with Congress, I'm not so sure we can get anything done there this year. But
it's going to be a mess. Yeah, talk about no legislation is going to get through for the next 2 years. I think it's just going to be a bad situation.
Amazing that we still pay them when they can't even get the budget passed on time. It's just amazing.
It's like dealing with a bunch of toddlers. It really is. And I've been dealing with politicians for 50 years. And I have to refrain from any further comments. But I mean, yeah, so.
Well, I've always
nothing good.
Nothing good.
Every year, there's people that talk about this and something introduced, but if they don't pass the budget on time, right? I mean, that's their job, so they shouldn't get paid until they pass the budget. But that never seems to get too far past.
No, we always run on continuing resolutions because they can't decide on what they want to do.
That's not passing
the kids can't play nice together is the problem, So
another thing that's happening is NOCO. It's coming up in March 29th to the 31st. That's going to be in Colorado at the Broadmoor Hotel this year. I know that if you go on the website, they are looking for volunteers always to help out. So that's one way you could go and help out a little bit. And get to see some of the speakers and stuff at a little reduced cost. But so that's coming up March 29th to the 31st. And I know I'm planning on attending this year for sure. And then, of course, I want to talk about again what we're doing with Ray, with the US Hemp Building Association, and what iHemp's going to do this year. Again, February 11th at Holland at the Big Lake Brewery. We're going to have kind of a meet and greet in the evening about 6 o'clock after the Lakeshore Expo on Saturday. And then March 11th, we're going to have that meeting. It's going to be a day meeting. We'll let you know exactly where. Maybe over here on the west side of the state. We may have the first one, but that's going to be, we're going to try to do 4 of them. Pretty much before May. And again, getting the word out to the builders, getting the interest up. And I'm afraid, Ray, what we're going to do is we're going to get all that interest built up, and then, where's the supply, right? But we'll make it all happen.
Yeah, there's we had this conversation on our group discussion on Clubhouse, and it was like, how many houses do you think will be built over the next year? And then I turned the question around. I was like, how many houses can be built over the next year? And so yeah, we definitely have supply chain issues, but we do have a supply chain. And so that's the most encouraging thing. We're not buying this out of France or anywhere else, or you still can, but you know, it is available domestically. And then from what I know, over the next 3 years, there is going to be a ton that becomes available because all of these things that are incubating are big things, and then they're going to happen in a big way. All these test grows for, you know, 10, 20, 100 acres, now they're going to be planting thousands of acres, and so it'll really come on strong. And so I'm looking forward to that. A couple of other things, the event there in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest. Yeah, we've got a panel we're speaking on, but the USHBA will also be exhibiting along with some of our corporate members. And then we're going to have a hospitality event at like a after party. One of the distributors, a family member owns a brewery there, and so we're going to have a nice after party and be back in with all the brewing kettles, and they've got, you know, all the AV stuff, so you can have a real nice social gathering back there. But then there'll also be a demonstration as well on some of that. So look forward to that. But really, going back to the thing as far as connecting with the local home builders associations and the events that they have in the build shows, that's our main target for getting out there on our end. And so yeah, I really am grateful for all the events y'all have.
Grassroots efforts prevail eventually.
Oh
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the big builds we'll have going on this year, it's going to be, we talked about this a lot, it's been one of our champion causes. Jesse D. Becker and a friend of hers, both of them are allergic to most of the products that are built in homes nowadays. So even if they rent somewhere, they're getting into a situation where it's toxic for them. And so we're doing a couple of builds this year called Safe Homes. A lot of it will be hemp material, but also be other material involved with it too. But stay tuned for news on that. They'll be doing a little fundraising campaign that'll be starting real soon. And we're actually planning on starting that here in May. So we're excited to see that we've been able to be part of that and help that process come to fruition and get some relief for Jessie and others like her. You'll be able to find some housing that doesn't kill them.
I've got some resources on consultants that can work with that on the design phase when they get ready to put things together and planning out how the walls are built and stuff for that. There's a couple of consultants that I've used that's their target market, and that's what they focus on.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely get in touch with you on that thing because we're at that phase and we're getting right into that phase right now. So.
Is it time for the Hemperor?
Well, I think it's getting really close. Ray, I want to thank you very much.
Way out of time.
Ray has to stick around to see this. You have to see it to believe it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's time. It is time for that.
They're hemp.
I got my great one. Everybody loves that hat when I put that on. They see it for the first time. A good friend of mine made this for me, and I appreciate everything that he did for that. That's for sure. So this week's recipe, yummy, with little games coming up here in the near future. We're going to have a little Super Bowl game going on, and of course, I'm waiting for March Madness to start for me. So that's one of my favorites. But yeah, we'll do this week's recipe. This week's recipe is the canned smoked chicken wings. And this is one that I've actually kind of developed a little bit. And so you get some chicken wings, about 3 pounds of them. You get a cup of hemp seed oil. If you don't know where to get that, look at downonthefarm.biz and we'll be able to send that to you. A quarter cup of your famous barbecue chicken rub. 1 cup of your favorite barbecue sauce. Half a cup of lager or ale, whatever you prefer there. 2 tablespoons of honey and 1 tablespoon of hemp hearts is optional. And now these you're gonna. I like quick recipes, but this one you need to marinate overnight to really get the zesty flavor and bring out that smoke flavor for it too. So the rest of the recipes there. This takes a little while in the smoker, but again, the overnight thing is what you got to prepare for there. So, anyways, let's just I'll give you a little sample. Like when I do get chance to cook it. So here it is. This is going to be my lunch for the day. I can say that much right now.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. So we want to thank Icon Processors and Down on the Farm for helping sponsor the show for this week.
Much needed support. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else has anything for the good of the cause?
No.
All right.
No. All right.
See
Thank
you what,
you, Ray.
in two weeks? Is that when we're back in 2 weeks?
Yep. 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks. Yep. That'd be the 16th. Yep.
And
All
we'll
right.
probably bring Susan in, Susan Barnhart from Hemp. That's sheep wool and hemp. They're making socks and hats and things. So we're same old textiles here in the U.S.
Those people down in Texas could use those right now. I mean, once again, it's freezing in Texas and the power's not working. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Oh, the don't be mean. The power's working. Don't poke fun of us. So, but yeah, the main thing to watch out for on the US Hemp Building Association is go to the ushba.org. And then there's a lot of member benefits that are going to be rolling out to where we've got so much nice momentum with the code coming into play, and then that puts us in residential applications, and then that makes that opens a lot of doors for conversation. And so any building professionals that are wanting to come in, definitely have them connect there or connect with me directly. I sure do enjoy the welcoming conversations on those.
I just renewed mine last week.
Ray, can you hang on after we wrap up here for just 2 minutes, please?
Yeah, I got to jump. I got to go into a Zoom conference call. So good to see you. I'll see you in 2
Thanks,
weeks.
everybody. See you in a couple weeks.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Jim, producer Jim, go ahead and end the broadcast.